Yes, lads, what is going on? Welcome back to another Sorare video. If you're new to my channel and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. And if you do enjoy the video, please do give it a like. Today, we're going to be talking about preparing for the under-23 competition on Sorare for this upcoming new European season. And I've brought along a Sorare veteran in the form of Quinny 3001 to help me along in doing this. Quinny, what's going on, mate?
All good, mate. All good. Thanks for having us on. Back for part two, as it were, getting ready for the new season. And under 23s, it's a division we all have lots of fun with, and looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, should be good. If you didn't see, me and Quinny did do a champion version over on his channel, so please do check that out if you haven't already. And today, like I said, we are doing the under 23 version over on my channel. It kind of felt right. So under 23s right now, or since its inception, I guess, since it became a region or competition on Sorare, all we've been able to do is play one lineup, Quinny, right? But we have news now. We know the under 23s in August is going to become a 3 lineup division, meaning that it's going to emulate all the other regions that we have right now on Sorare or we've had during this transition phase. Under 23s, it's not going to have an in-season mode as we know right now, but it will have divisions. It should have boxes. And I think we're going to see so many different dynamics now going into the summer and then obviously into August. Whereas, if under 23s was just a one lineup division, I think, or one lineup competition, I think there'd definitely be a lot less hype around it. I know under 23s has been, well, for me, how I've sort of been able to play this game to the level I want to play it at and be relatively successful in that division, being able to condense in that division. It's allowed me to do, everything else I've done, within Sorare and my gallery. Whereas, yeah, I think these new dynamics in August just create, so many different possibilities now, with building out under 23 lineups. And I think the first thing for me is how important having 3 lineups is going to be, because, it's going to be 3 tickets effectively to winning some of these incredible under 23 players that do play in champion region, your Bellinghams, Vinnies, Haalands, Rodrigos, those really high-end cards, which are going to be very hard to obtain in the champion region. And I'm definitely not saying it's going to be easy over in under 23s, but the fact that you can play challenger and contender cards to win those champion high-end under 23 cards, I think there's definitely a dynamic there that's maybe a little bit underrated and could go under the radar.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the thing with under 23s is because it is like the Wonder Kid division as well. Like when it does come to having multi-entry there now, the problem with under 23s is calling the right 5 to play when you've got one entry, because so many of them are still cutting their teeth, developing in the game. Some of them play for stronger teams than other ones. Some of them do better in hard games and some of them do better in easier games or whatever. So having the ability to play 3 of them in the same lineup, you can kind of cover your bases where I've got a hunch that this guy is going to kick in this weekend, but I can't justify him putting him in the team because I've only got one entry, and you make a safer choice maybe and it bites you in the bum. So I think it's going to be good for really expressing your gallery in that sense, where me and you were joking just before recording this. I won a guy from Rosenborg called Broholm as a tier 4 or something like that, tier 3, never heard of him, in my puff. And I get one message from somebody saying he was on loan last year, he was quite tidy, and he started playing. When I see the guy starting to play, it'd be really hard to put him in team 1, but it's really easy to put a guy like that in team 3.
It just allows us, like right now, I have I've had an under 23 gallery for years now, and I have excess players, like you said, just not playing every game week. And August comes around, I'm gonna have, or hopefully have, 15 under 23 cards going out every game week. Team 3 might not be at the strength of team 1, but at least I'm able to play those cards. At least I can have another 2 or 3 sweats. Whereas right now it's one lineup, and like you said, if you don't get it right, if you play it safe, and whatever, you can get punished. Whereas you're going to get 3 teams going out, 3 shots at prizes, 3 shots at boxes. By the way, like you could end up getting 9 boxes alone just from under 23s, which I think is going to be a massive addition. As a bit of a disclaimer, we don't know for certain there's going to be boxes in the divisions, but every other division right now, every other competition that has divisions on Sorare right now have boxes as prizes. So I can't imagine under 23s is any different. The only difference is, of course, as far as like the other divisionals, is that there's no in-season. But, we're just talking classic here. So, you can obviously win in-season cards, and hopefully boxes. So I don't know. I just think under 23 cards in general will get, a bit of an increase in demand because, like I said, those goalkeepers are going to be really, really lucrative. If you want to play 3 lineups and you want 5 starters, you're going to need 3 goalkeepers. And I think that's a really interesting one. Under 23 keepers anyway are really sought after. Never mind when you're timesing that by 3, and hopefully, the demand for those goalkeepers, times by 3. That's not, an exact science, but I think anyone that plays under 23 now will definitely want to play at least one other lineup because they're going to have surplus, they're going to have depth, and they're probably going to want a starting goalkeeper to make that 4-man effort into an actual 5-man effort.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way on that. Because like it is a strategy where you will always be carrying some extra bits and pieces. And it kind of brings up, again, something we were kind of chatting about before we came in. But like if you do want your teams to be strong, like we're thinking about goalkeepers, like how many under 23 goalkeepers are there? Like period,
Not many.
So like the good ones like are hard to come by. How next season we don't even know who the good ones will be, how many of them will be, what is a good under 23 keeper, changes quite often as well, so the case certainly for goalkeepers, and we can chat about it in other areas as we go through it, but like there's a lot of merit on, like if you fancy it's going to be Slonina season, trying to get 3 Sloninas in, or Van der Voorts, or whoever it might be, Trubens and all the rest of it. And yeah, I do feel that with the challenge and the contender element coming into it, to kind of keep it on point with what you said, like those guys will be elevated in price against the comparables in the region of a guy that's 24 and above kind of thing, because that's an extra little bit of utility, number one, and then number two, like there's an extra kind of reward element there. So it doesn't need to always be the Vinny and the Bellingham or whatever, but if you can win like the tier 3, I don't know, Doku when he's on the bench for 2 months at Man City, or something, maybe it would be tier 3, but you know what I mean? Like, you can still pull those guys in. And you can use them, even if you don't have champion, because they can still play under 23, of course. But if you do have champion, it could be a sneaky way to get some reinforcements in. Because the thing about under 23s, the wonder kid division, is like the good ones are emerging talents. They get better and better and better. And I think Guardiola, for me, was a great example of this season, and is a good example in Sorare in general anyway. But like, absolute smasher at Leipzig, powerhouse for Croatia, big money move to City, and he only shows up the last 5 weeks of the season. Which is a bit sore to go through, but like that's the way players' careers go, is like, they make, the good ones, they go up and they should do better every season, but it's not going to be a complete straight line where they continue to play 95 games a season. So you need a wee bit of relief and alternatives to, well, it's not happening for Guardiola, so I need another guy that can play, so if you can win guys, basically my point is a tier 3 or a tier 2, as a champion guy, like if you can hang on to them for a season or two, they could be a guy you could not have previously afforded, a Man City starting left back that gets decisives.
Yeah, I think you can afford to be patient then, right? Like having an under 23 gallery used to be like a really, not meta thing, but there was a niche there, right? And then I think we've kind of gone away from it roughly, I would say, over the last year, maybe year and a half, for whatever reason. Obviously, gameplay's changed. The whole game, in itself, have massively changed on its head, and it hasn't become as lucrative maybe to play under 23. Mbappe's aged out. Like there's loads of factors, right? I think going into August, I really, really think you're going to see so many more like just galleries that just play under 23, because you can play 3 lineups, whether that's limited, rare, super rare. I think you're going to see, like for a while I was playing under 23, limited, rare, super rare, but that's only 3 lineups. Now that can be 9 if you've got the luxury and have the goalkeepers and the outfield depth to do so. And the amazing thing is, like, you can win boxes there. Like, and I'm not, like, boxes have been great. Like, and from a content standpoint for us, like, they're great for content. But I think just in general, when they bump them up in August, like as far as what you can win in them, right now it's just level ups and cards. I know you get the odd mystery jersey in there, depending on the competition, but it seems like Sorare really want to focus in on just having a variety of things in there. So once boxes get even better, then that can only help, assuming that you can win them in under 23, that can only help the under 23 division as far as demand goes. Like, I just can't see how it doesn't become. I just think it have a new lease of life, I think, as a division. And I think we're going to see so many Sorare users just focus solely on under 23. And that, obviously, that's a good thing. I think prices will probably rise in conjunction with that. And the fact that you don't need to play in season cards there. You can play, there's no need to go out and buy an in-season Bellingham to go and play in under 23s. That's just not what you're going to do. You're going to buy the classic. And from a budget standpoint, that can only be a good thing if you want to play 3 teams worth as well. And I do like your you're stacking point on like maybe the meta is just to play 3 goalkeepers of the same player for under 23. Obviously it probably makes even more sense to have 3 teams of the exact same 5 cards potentially on certain matchups, certain game weeks. That can kind of kill you though that way though, because if you get an injury, in one lineup, you get them in all 3.
But it is going to be quite open this year because obviously the Mbappe age out is the most noted, but like there's Veerman, there's O'Reilly, there's actually a lot of power aging out, so it's quite an open kind of field, and it just kind of further highlights that you've not got the same availability of, oh, I don't have this guy, but I'll buy that guy, because under 23s there's just less of them that hit those heights, hit those levels now, so if you wanted team 1 to 3 to be as strong as possible, then you will need to consider doubling up on a card, tripling up on a card, depending on how much faith you've got on them and your budget and stuff like that, for sure. Because again, this is what we were talking about before coming on, but for me, I think under 23 for most people will be the purest, this is my strongest team, and this is my second strongest team, and this is my punt. These guys should all play. I've got a bit of faith, but I'm not that certain, Whereas like with me, in contender, and like you've alluded to, you can do it under 23, but you maybe need to approach it much differently. But like, I want all 3 of my teams to be as strong as them, and I can just copy them all up. I can have 3 Vickers and 3 or 2 O'Reillys, and this kind of thing. Yeah. But under 23, like that's a lot harder to do with different players, actual different faces of cards,
And the crazy thing is about under 23s is like you get new emerging scorers every year that come out of nowhere. Not only do you have like your certainties, like Vinny, we know is going to be pretty good next year, right? Like there's obviously things at the higher level that you can kind of, know. But I think there's always that, that 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old that comes into a new league or even just starts playing for the team that he's been at for 10 years, right? Like there's so many different things that emerge in that division. Starting goalkeepers getting injured, older starting goalkeepers getting injured, the the backups under 23, he gets a full season in goal because the number one's done his ACL. Obviously, we don't wish that upon any player, but that does happen. That dynamic happens all the time, not only in goal, but even obviously outfielders. So that just then comes back to the depth thing for me. Like you can sit on so many under 23s that you think will be good at some point, knowing that you can play 3 teams. You might not know that this guy's going to start every game week, but if he plays in your 3rd team and it's in Division 3, then it might not matter that much compared to having to play him in, your first lineup, the Bellingham chaser, the Vinny chaser in Division 1. You can't really risk that. But I think just having depth in general, having a full gallery of under 23 cards now just becomes way more viable because you can play them in so many different areas. But one thing I would love to do, and I don't think Sorare are going to do that, but imagine if you could play down a scarcity in under 23. Do you think that'll be a thing?
Yeah, I think it'll be the same as the way it works for the Rubens. So I think you could play your supers and rare, your rares and limiteds, etc. Yeah, I think you should be able to do that.
But you can't do that in All-Star. And if All-Star stays, isn't that the equivalent?
Yeah, interesting point. I would imagine you should be able to, because I think I'm using the logic of what we've got already. So like if you think about if we do get boxes, like you can win super rares in the rare boxes when you get to the top end of the league and stuff like that. So similarly, the logic you can draw to say there should be boxes, I think the same logic takes you to you should be able to play down.
But yeah, and I think that the next, probably the last thing to kind of point out is you can play it all year round. We talk about champion, like we talked about, the strategies for champion on your channel. And we know that that's like an eight month a year league. It doesn't happen all year round. Whereas contender and challengers do with the summer leagues over there. But under 23, you can play it all year round. And you've been able to do that anyway. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, it's a global competition. It always has been. But the element of having 3 teams, I think, is just super fun. And you can, you've got a 12-month calendar basically to win the best under 23 cards, whether that is the champion ones or whether that's the Echeverry right now at River. Like, there's always going to be a really, really good under 23 card from one of those like regions. They're not always going to be in champion. Price wise, maybe, it might be reflective in champ. But as far as like utility and sometimes scores, you are going to get the odd card from, a challenger or contender under 23 card at the top of the prize pool in and around those champion cards. So being able to win them all year round, having, obviously you need goalkeepers that play all year, not all year round, but, cover 12 months of the year through summer leagues and obviously European leagues. Like, I think that just makes it so much more exciting. And I'm genuinely like really, really excited to play under 23s again. I'll be honest, I have sort of lost the love for it over the last 5 or 6 months in that, like, how Sorare have set out the new competitions. I love them. And it's allowed me to vary my gallery way more. I've got players in champion, players in contender. I love it. I love how dynamic my gallery is now. Whereas before, I was literally an under 23 boy through and through. And it was great. Like I had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of success with it. But the game itself meant that you couldn't really get away with doing that anymore, I don't think. I think you need to have a bit of a you just need a lot of depth, and you need to be able to play in certain spots in certain game weeks. Whereas like with under 23, you're just kind of hyper focused. I think Sorare, with having three lineups, it does make it a lot more viable now to just be an under 23 gallery, and I'm contemplating it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'll be like leaning into it for like I do have like for the summer I'll be playing under 23 all the way with my Tanny. I don't plan to playing Tanny like in the region, for example, but
yeah,
that's the dynamic of this that I quite enjoyed the thought of when you brought that up, because like if you are a champion player anyway, or a European calendar player, you will get guys awarded to you, except for champion, that do play at a different time of year from what your kind of native stuff does. And under 23 could be like the best way of like using that still, because like, you know, from day one of the European season, that JK, Brazilian, American under 23 thing you've got going on, as soon as match day one of the European season starts, can win in season wonder kids. And again, it doesn't always need to be top spot and pulling the Vinnies and stuff. It can be pulling high scope tier 2s, speculative tier 4s that maybe get a wee cheeky loan or get a wee move or something like that. Because again, like the actual best players, you don't really care where they play in that region. You know, like you said, like if you've got Echeverri or you've got Endrick or you've got Thiago Almada or you've got like these guys that are outside Europe and they're absolute killers in their league. Maybe they never moved to the big leagues. Maybe they just, you know, Ricky Puig, and maybe it goes the other way around. Different things happen to different players. You know, we were chatting before coming on. Echeverri, if he goes to Man City and gets loaned out to, won't be Girona now, but if he goes on loan to somebody else in Europe, you're probably buzzing about that, because he's going to go to a development league where he's going to be the main man again. And you don't care if that's challenger or contender because he's under 23. So it doesn't matter that he's jumping around all these regions and hopping about. You don't need to worry about that. So it's a nice kind of security blanket if you've got those keepers to facilitate the wonder kids finding their feet in the world.
Like, yeah, we mentioned on your channel with the champion, like if a champion card moves to contenders or challengers and you're only a champion player, you basically need to sell that card, right? Unless you want to build around him, which let's say you don't, which is fine. But with under 23s, like whatever card you have, it, like you said, it doesn't matter where they move. As long as his age is under 23 by July 1st, whatever the criteria is, and he has a fixture, he is able to play in that competition and win you know, the best of the best under 23s. And I think that safety net, like we mentioned the safety net in champion, in that like if you have a La Liga, Premier League or Bundesliga card and they move to Ligue 1 or Serie A, then there's still a champion card. You have that blanket. You don't have it in contenders, or you don't have that in contenders or challengers anywhere. There's no native, or there's no single league team. There's no single league competitions. There might be in August, but we don't know of that. And you know, right now, I'd love an MLS one, by the way, on a bit of a side note. But yeah, under 23s kind of bypasses all that, and that there's definitely merit in playing that competition for me. And honestly, I'm really excited for it. I'm going to try and play three rares next season, potentially 3 limiteds as well. I'll only probably do 1 super rare just because it's so hard to get those goalkeepers in. But if we are able to play down, then my excess, you know, blue cards, super rare cards, maybe, you know, can facilitate my rare teams in some ways. So yeah, I'm really excited to see, you know, how all those dynamics play out. I am praying we do get boxes, and we're talking as if like, you know, we definitely are. I'm pretty certain we are, but we haven't really had confirmation yet, so we are waiting on that. But yeah, no, I'm buzzing for it.
And I think probably the last thing I've got to bring up, certainly, maybe the counterpoint to what you said on mine, that Mr. Midweek is over. Under 23, Mr. Midweek might be alive and kicking. That's
a good point, mate. Honestly, that's probably the one dynamic we haven't hit yet is, does Mr. Midweek come back? Yeah.
Smaller pool, less availability. If you've got the 3 Trubins and Benfica at home to Sparta Prague, then you know
it doesn't matter where they're playing. You know, whether it's Conference League, Champions League, whatever league, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be an under 23 card. And I think, maybe in the midweeks is where under 23 comes into its own. Like that is where the Mr. Midweeks can come back. Whereas, you know, we mentioned with the Villa example on your channel with the champion talk, like that becomes quite tough, right? Like, you know, the pools are not condensed in that, like the 20 example, where that was the only challenger team playing in the midweek, or one of the only challenger teams. And that meant you basically just mopped up rewards. Whereas under 23, yeah, everyone can play, it's inclusive, but I do think, yeah, maybe that is where those sneaky wins can come in for you, like in a midweek. And then that goes back to having those really good cards that, like your Zaire Emery's, your Pedri's, whoever, they play in good champion teams, but they also play in the Champions League, or they also play in the Conference League. 20 boys, whoever, Dan Rotz, we could go through many of examples, but the dual utility, maybe as far as like midweek weekend, maybe it's a really good thing for an under 23 card that plays all the time. Whereas for a older card, or a non-under 23 card, might not be like, it's still good. They're still playing games, but it might be a bit tougher for you to like really differentiate yourself on the leaderboard. Whereas under 23s, yeah, I think you're right. That could be where it's at, Quinny, for winning those sneaky rewards. Well, we've given the secret away now, so everyone knows.
Yeah, that's why they hit subscribe. That's why they tune in. That's why they don't miss a video. And yeah, because I was just looking at the parallels that we have between these regions in both these videos, and that was definitely something that occurred to me. I thought, well, do you know, Mr. Midweek could be alive and kicking with this if you have got the fixture in your favour, and if you do have multiples of a card, because if that's the kind of way it's going. Another thing I was thinking as we were talking about this just now, but like especially like we're talking about safety nets with cards and all the rest of it, but especially if you are buying into champion, if you're getting a big collection together, a lot of the tertiary players in the squad will be younger. They won't all necessarily be under 23. But like if you're at PSG or Bayern and this type of thing, and you get an under 20, a couple of squad players carded that then get loaned out, that then get this, that then get that. If you just want to be Bundesliga and have that collection on the go, I don't know if the Israeli boy Peretz, if he's under 23, but like if you get a few loans out, then all of a sudden your Bayern collection's got a little under 23 spine, and then it might be, oh, do you know what? I always wanted an excuse to go and buy this guy in Belgium. But now I've got one because I can just play with these guys, or there's a nice kind of like if you can pick your club and you can pick your your target well in that regard, then the under 23 extra layer of utility. Like what I kind of thought a moment ago was like if you had an under 23 Bundesliga, like you could have like 12 lineups worth of guys if you could build such a thing, and play the league, play the region, play the age group classic, and really then get max utility out of all the multiples and variables you've got there. Really hard thing to do at a league specific level to totally kill that branch out, but that's like max utility if you can get that Venn diagram sorted.
No, it's a really interesting dynamic, and I am really, really excited to see how that all pans out during this next 6 to sort of 8 week period now before the European season gets going again in August. Yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed chatting through that with you.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so lads, if you could please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Of course, go over to Quinny's channel if you've not watched the champion version of this. Please do so. And yeah, there'll be more content on the way. Hope you have a great day. I shall see you guys in the next video.